unitedintentions.org. Catch us on Facebook and Instagram at United Intentions and Twitter at Higher Intention. Look for us on 99.1 FM, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, Blog Talk Radio, and many more. Over the next hour, we'll introduce you to some fascinating people and engaging discussions that may provide you with answers to assist in revolutionizing your own personal health. And now, here's Dr. Nelson.
This is the United Intentions Radio Network. I'm Dr. Nelson Bulmash, and you're listening to another edition of Health Matters. For those of you catching the show here in Atlanta on WDJY FM 99.1, welcome and thank you. Know that we greatly appreciate you listening and following us. For those of you who are picking up the program down in Florida on our recently added WWNN 93.5 FM station, we are so happy to have you as well. Welcome and enjoy the show. If you haven't already, go watch our Get Your Life Back Now DVDs for free. Well, sort of. Visit getyourlifebacknow.live. Tomorrow, we'll have Kim Corbin from the New World Library at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget, visit our website at unitedintentions.org and connect with like-minded individuals like yourself. We have an amazing guest today. She has been certified as a teacher of the Alexander Technique since 2009. Her undergraduate and graduate degrees are rooted in the behavioral sciences, which has helped her inform her approach to an understanding of human behavior. She has devoted the past 17 years of her life to the study, research, and teachings of the Alexander Technique. Prior to her Alexander Technique certification, she worked as an educator both in the U.S. and abroad, which prompted her to research posture among children. She recently presented a workshop on the benefits of the Alexander Technique at the 49th Annual Association for Applied Psychophysiology and Biofeedback with internationally known biofeedback expert Dr. Eric Pepper. Her newly published article, Eye Posture, a closer look at the lifestyle practices of school children, examines the habits that lead to good and poor posture among youth. Her website was chosen in the top 25 posture blogs and websites to follow in 2018. Currently, she teaches the Alexander Technique in Melbourne, Florida. She is a member of both the American Society for the Alexander Technique and the Society of Teachers of the Alexander Technique. For more information, you can visit her website at www.bodyandposture.com. Tami Bulmash, welcome to Health Matters. It is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
We both have such busy lives. You're a wonderful both wife, mother, and professional. And I, of course, am not as busy so much with my family anymore since my kids are all grown up, but very busy with my radio work and my practice that you and I, unfortunately, don't get the time we need to spend with each other. So
I know. So this is how we have to meet now.
That's right. That's right.
On air.
So we'll have our closest, 100,000 friends listening to us as you and I catch up. How's that?
Yes, I think that sounds great.
So, Tami, let's jump right in. Tell us, what exactly is the Alexander Technique?
The Alexander Technique is a clinically proven method used to alleviate back pain and discomfort, as well as improve posture. And the technique helps individuals recognize undesired habits that cause body pain and relearn how to use the body in a more efficient way, which promotes ease and optimal functioning.
Wonderful. Tami, I'm always fascinated by how people arrive at specific places in their life. Mm-hmm. What was it about the Alexander Technique that enrolled you, that made you so passionate that you've spent over 17 years now both studying and teaching it?
Well, the Alexander Technique can be used for performers, and it can be used for rehabilitation purposes, as well as just promoting posture and health. And in my case, I was studying performance. I was studying theater in London, and the Alexander Technique was part of our curriculum there. And I had been given some feedback from some of my teachers that I was a little bit awkward on stage, that I was clumsy, that I didn't flow. Right. And I just kind of thought that's how I was, and there was nothing I could do about it. So I just said, this is just the way that I am. And they thought that the Alexander Technique class would help me. Well, because I was so disconnected from my body, I had no clue what what to do with my body anyway, and I wasn't really getting it. And so the teacher of that class said to me, you know what, Tami, I think you would benefit from some private Alexander Technique lessons. And that was the one-on-one work that I did with my wonderful teacher, Manoli Garcia. And I truthfully say that if she would have told me to follow her to the moon, I would have followed her to the moon. But it was the Alexander Technique that was what she was teaching me. And what I discovered, my aha moment through that process, was that I realized that it was something that I was doing to myself that was causing me to look clumsy and awkward. It was due to habits that I had. And the empowering part of that was that I could then relearn how to not do those things. And that made me feel very powerful about my own body, that I had some control over how I was managing it.
Wow, that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Yes, sure.
So why is posture and proper mechanical advantage so important? What kind of things happen if you don't have good posture, if you don't use good biomechanics, and what kind of things can we help prevent if we do use better posture and better biomechanics?
Well, posture is just a word that I like to use because most people know what it is. But the Alexander Technique is so much more than just posture. I think a better way to look at posture is the manifestation of everything else that we do in our lives, our thinking habits, the daily habits, the way we carry out activities. So rather than just think of posture as a fixed state or something that is an isolated issue, rather think about what is posture comprised of? So if you have issues with back pain or neck pain or headaches, you certainly can think about what ways are you using your body repeatedly that could be therefore showing that symptom of a headache, showing that symptom of a back pain.
Right. Interesting. By the way, Tami, before I continue, we should let everybody know that we are not only answering questions on Facebook as they come, but we also have a call-in number. So I don't know if you talk to any of your friends and family members about calling in, but that number, Tami, is 678-495-4345. Once again, if you're driving a car, pull over, please. Don't get yourself in trouble here. That number again is 678-495-4345. So, folks, we'd love to have you call in and ask Tami lots of questions. She is fascinating, as you can already tell, and we'll enjoy answering your questions. So, Tami, it sounds like this is far more than just a technique that you have done to you. It sounds like this requires the individual to take ownership and responsibility for the habits that compel them, if you will, for lack of a better word, to show up, whether it be with regard to posture or performance. I think you were telling me at one time that the gentleman who actually developed this had lost his voice and was having speaking problems. He was a Shakespearean performer, as I recall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
exactly right.
So he actually used this system to help improve his ability to perform. So does it also help the organs perform better? Meaning, does it cause a general increase in one's well-being by enhancing not only the structure of a person's body, but also of organ function?
Yes, that's a great question. As you mentioned, F.M. Alexander is the founder of the Alexander Technique, and he was born in 1869, and he was a Shakespearean actor, and he actually developed a form of laryngitis because of the way he was using his body. So what his incredible ingenious discovery was that he realized after losing his voice and after going to doctors where no one could figure out what was wrong with him, he realized it was something that he was doing to himself, and he was before every time that he was going to perform, he lifted his shoulders up, raised his chest, brought his head back and down. And the way that he was contorting his body and the way that he was constricting his voice and usage caused him to lose his voice. So when applying that to what we do in our modern techno-savvy world, how does that affect our organs? Well, if we're sitting hunched over in front of our computer screen for the majority of our day, or in front of our mobile phone, or walking with our head down as we're checking our phone, we are certainly putting all that pressure on our organs. And it's very difficult to function, and not only on our organs, on our muscles. We are requiring our back to do so much more of the work rather than letting our legs and our knees help out. carry out these activities.
You know, it's very interesting, Tami, as I'm thinking about what you're saying. If one is hunched over, for example, you're not going to breathe in as deeply, as fully, and as a result, you're not going to carry as much oxygen to the cells, which means you're not going to make as much cellular energy, which means that if you're hunched over incorrectly as such, then you're going to fatigue the muscles even more. So you're right. You're going to have this cascade of lower energy and more tension in the body. So it's going to make it also more difficult, I would think, for you to perform, for example, if you were a student, if you were studying, or if you're working all day in, some position where you're working on a computer. I'm guessing that it would really eventually, at the end of the day, take its toll on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the daily wear and tear of the habits that we do every single day. You have to think about how much time we spent sitting. Our bodies weren't designed to sit for as many hours as we sit. If you go back to the days of the hunters and gatherers and how little sitting they did, they were in activity. And today the majority of our days are spent sitting down. And when we do move around, it's maybe for an hour or two of maybe intensive exercise, which if you go from sedentary position to intensive exercise, of course, you're going to experience back pain as well, because you're not giving any moderation to the body.
Right. It makes a lot of sense. So, Tami, tell us, what kind of people do you generally work with? And in addition to what you work with, I don't know, in other words, if you have a specific focus, if you work, or I know you love performing. You love, at one point you were a singer and an actor, and you were beautiful in both as a singer and as an actress. Is this kind of an area that you focus, or do you see a myriad of people who come to see you for any number of different issues?
I do see a myriad of people that come. I tend to like working with actors, but not only actors. Actors tend to come to me because they're introduced to the Alexander Technique in their schools. And so I do find actors that want to enhance their performance. But I also recently have been seeing more medical professionals, healthcare professionals and practitioners coming. And the reason being, you think these are the people that take care of other people. Why would they need any help with their posture? Well, just imagine a dentist who spends the majority of their time working bent over and looking into the mouths of their patients, and what that does to them daily, hour after hour, day after day, to their back and their posture. And doctors, surgeons especially. So I do have people from the healthcare profession that come, teachers that spend a lot of time on their feet, people in the military that even retired people from the military that are now starting to really feel what all those years of that kind of training and the kind of toll it's taken on their bodies. So really a full spectrum of people, teenagers who are actually smart enough to say, hey, I noticed that I'm sitting with a rounded back and I don't like it. What can I do about it?
Right.
And parents who are concerned. So all sorts of people.
Fantastic. It's interesting, Tami, you spoke about doctors, and I had a dentist who I really, really liked. He was excellent, and he had a football injury of his neck when he was playing football in college, and he ended up having surgery on a disc. Well, as it turned out, he ended up having at least 3 more surgeries on his neck while practicing as a dentist, and it got so bad from the awkward positions that he had to maintain to look into people's mouths. If I'm not mistaken, he retired in his 40s. He never even made it to his 50s. Wow. So how unfortunate. I wonder if the Alexander Technique could have helped him and spare him, a lot of years of pain and suffering that would have allowed him to continue in his craft for many more years.
That's an incredible, incredible story, and it's unfortunate. And I actually was thinking when you were mentioning that there's an Alexander Technique teacher named Aniko Ball who lives in Melbourne, Australia, who is actually a dentist, and she was close to retiring around that same age, around in her 40s, I think. Right. I think mid-40s. She had just given up. She discovered the Alexander Technique, and now she conducts workshops for other dentists and dental assistants because of also what happens to them in dental school. So she is making waves now for people in her field, and there are other doctors in the Alexander Technique community that are also reaching out to people in their profession. So certainly you have the medical profession, and you also have people that their job is lifting things. If you think about people that are working in whatever kind of environment or occupation where they're lifting things all day, moving around heavy things, and they have to wear those belts. And you think, are they being mindful in the way that they're carrying out these activities, or are they straining their bodies as they carry out these activities? And,
wow.
and that mindfulness is really what the Alexander technique promotes.
Makes a lot of sense. Tami, we're going to take a quick break. Folks, this is Dr. Nelson Bulmash. You're listening to Health Matters. My guest today is Tami Bulmash, and we're talking about the benefits of the Alexander technique. We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial.
Are you ready to be the hero of your own story? It's time to put the power of your health back into your hands. Join us for our free 25-day journey to get your life back now from chronic illness. Our doctors and experts will guide you back to optimal health.
Unfortunately, medicine is now a business. It is not a healing art anymore. Commercialization has taken over medicine, and what happens is safe, inexpensive treatments are often ignored because nobody's making any serious money off of them. There is not a magic pill. My concern is helping people get well as opposed to making money off selling supplements. We're going to address some of the complications of diabetes with the right nutritional supplements.
Go to www.getyourlifebacknow.live and begin your journey today.
This is Dr. Nelson Bulmash. We're returning, and you're listening to Health Matters. My guest is Tami Bulmash. We're speaking today about the benefits of the Alexander technique. Tami, you ready to answer a phone call?
Absolutely.
All right. Who am I speaking with? Hello? Hang on one second. We seem to be... I'm not sure. They may have gotten disconnected here, Tami. Oh. Let's give this just a... Well, Tami, I'll tell you what. We'll talk while they figure it out. Do I need to hang this back up again? Okay. I don't know what happened. They may have hung up. Sorry, Tami. Somebody else will call back. I'm not sure what happened there. All right. So, Tami, what kind of problems have you specifically helped people with? I'm very, very excited to hear more of that. I know you're very good at what you do.
So, well, first let me explain what the Alexander technique looks like, what a lesson looks like, because so many people come to me for so many different reasons, and I approach every lesson in the same way. So if someone comes in and they say, you know, I really have shoulder pain, or I have lower back pain, which are the two most common reasons really why people come. Or if someone's been told, you know, I've got issues with my posture, everyone tells me I have really bad posture. So the things that I discuss with them are, let's first think about what the habits are that you are engaging in every day. So there's the obvious habits of sitting in front of a chair, in front of a screen in a chair, and also whatever the occupation is. Right. And then there are the habits that are really more specific to the Alexander technique lens, which are, how do you engage in each activity? And it really starts with the chair. So when a new student comes, we look at ourselves, we do some work in the chair, which is in front of a mirror. And it's often very difficult for people to look at themselves in the mirror without judgment, but that's not really the focus. The focus is not to like look and examine our bodies.
Right.
It's to really look at how we're using our bodies. So if someone is getting in and out of a chair, they think, okay, what's the big deal? I just got in and out of a chair. But really, how do you get in and out of a chair? When you get out of a chair, are you...
Tami, hang on.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think the person called back. My apologies for interrupting you. Who am I speaking with? Okay. For some reason, I don't know why, but that's the second accidental hang-up we have here. So I don't know what's going on there, Tami. Forgive me for interrupting you.
No
Continue.
problem.
Go right ahead, Tim.
Yeah, just about the lesson. So if a person were sitting and in front of a mirror and we were looking at how they carry out an activity, like getting in and out of a chair. So how do they get out of a chair? They probably just prop themselves up. Sometimes they push their hands up to help them get out of the chair, and they plop right back down into the chair. And it's actually, there's not a lot of awareness in that getting in and out of the chair. And the Alexander technique, we think of the primary control, which is the relationship of the head, neck, and back. And we say to let the neck be free so that the head can go forward and up and the back can lengthen and widen. So when we get out of a chair, we are moving up and forward with our head. And we are getting out of the chair. We are thinking about keeping our back and lengthened, and we are using our knees in that activity. And when we get back into the chair, instead of thinking about looking at the chair for support, we actually think about what if we were to go from a standing position all the way to a squat in the floor, and the chair just happens to be there at the midway point.
Oh, I love that.
So we actually use our knees so much more in this mindfulness in the Alexander technique lesson, where so many people, we don't use our knees. I always say knees, please, because we have so much space in our knees, and they want to help. That's their job to help.
Yes, they do.
And so that's really what we look at. So when someone comes to me and says, I've got, lower back pain, or I've got shoulder pain, or my elbow hurts, or my knee hurts, they say, let's look at the whole organism, because that's just a symptom of the underlying issue, which is dysfunction in the use of the body.
So this really is a technique or a system of care that requires somebody to be quite mindful about the way they manage themselves, for lack of a better word, excuse me as a scientist, but in time and space.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Time and space awareness, spatial awareness, and also sensory awareness, which is actually a very important thing to think about, this faulty sense of awareness that most of us have, because so many students come to me and say, I don't have any issues with my posture. I just have, neck pain. And so I'll say, okay, so I don't have any issue with my posture. Look, I sit up straight. And they show me very proudly how they sit up straight. And so that's the faulty sense of awareness, or faulty sensory awareness, where you think, okay, what I'm doing is sitting up straight, but actually you're arching your back. And so when I bring them into a lengthened position, which is releasing the lower back and thinking up and freeing that neck, they'll look in the mirror and they'll say, that's not straight. I look like I'm rounding my back. And I'm like, no, that's actually, you want to go to neutral, right? You want to go to neutral spine. And so it's going to feel wrong. So that faulty sensory awareness is what we think is right versus what is actually the more desired way to carry out activities.
This is absolutely fascinating. So you do a lot of work, it sounds like, with anything related to the neck and spine. Talk to me about extremity issues. I'm sure that by freeing up the spine that you're going to also enhance extremity issues. Do you directly teach people techniques for handling extremity issues?
I don't focus on extremities per se, because I look at the functioning of the body as a whole. Okay. It's a more holistic approach, and I look at, for example, someone can come in with wrist pain, and they can say, my wrist hurts a lot, or carpal tunnel, whatever their issue is. So I don't look at the hand and say, first of all, I don't treat. It's not the Alexander technique is not a treatment; it's a lesson.
Fair enough.
So it's learning tools of how to improve your overall well-being. And so I wouldn't look at that. But what happens when you lengthen your back, when you free your neck, when you go forward and up, then the body is getting back into balance. And then you find that these symptoms lessen. I had a student with sciatic pain, and after lessons, she came in for the sciatic pain. But after a few lessons, she's like, it doesn't really hurt anymore. And so I didn't treat the sciatic. I'm not looking at any particular part, but you look at the system as a whole, the lengthening of the body as a whole.
How wonderful. So what I'm hearing is that your system, the Alexander technique, could be used completely as a standalone method for teaching people how to improve the effectiveness of their mechanics, their body, their energy production, their organ dynamics?
Oh, absolutely. It could be standalone, but I also think it can be complementary to other forms of modalities and techniques that help people, such as massage, physical therapy, chiropractic care, because you find that people gravitate towards certain forms of care, and it resonates with them. And sometimes that care maybe can't do everything. And so you find another, if a person is having immediate pain and they just can't move, and they need an adjustment, they need just so that they can physically move, then they would go to a chiropractor or a physical therapist or a massage. And the Alexander technique, while it certainly can help offset the pain, it is a process. So it takes, there was a study in the British Medical Journal that looked at the Alexander technique, and it found that out of the other methods that were tested in that study, I think it was massage and physical therapy, the Alexander technique was proven to be the most effective after 24 lessons. And it solved about over 85% of the chronic back pain. So after 24 lessons, so you see there's the commitment component to the Alexander technique, where it is not a quick fix. And that is something that I want to stress, is that this is not, that's why it's different than a treatment, whereas in a treatment you come, the practitioner takes care of you, you leave, you feel better. And this is more of a tool. So it's a toolkit, and it gives you skills to then apply these principles to yourself. And you certainly do this under the guidance of a teacher, but you apply these skills to yourself, and then you can work on yourself to offset all of these bad habits and all of this pain. So that's what I loved about it, was that I liked to feel like I was in control of my own recovery and my own improvement. And so again, this is not going to be for everybody, because some people are like, nah, I don't care, I don't want to know, just fix me.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. No matter Tami, how much I educate people, there are those people who will invariably walk into my office sheepishly with their head down, and I say, what's going on there, champ? How come you're staring at the floor? I hurt myself again. You did? Well, what did you do? Well, nothing really. I just woke up and I couldn't walk. And I get these pretty often, and the truth is, of course, they probably weren't fighting a demon while they were sleeping. What probably happened is they reached a critical threshold, and they didn't have you to teach them proper mechanics and such over time. And so the body goes to a state of chaos, meaning if you're not constantly doing things to create coherence in the system, then it tends to fall apart. So, oh my goodness, here. Didn't know my phone was here and here. Would somebody please take that? Sorry about that. I had it on. You didn't hear? I didn't hear anything. No. Good. Yeah. Somebody's probably calling me for the show. I was trying. I was going to give it to Jesse to help record for Facebook Live, so I had an immediate copy afterwards. You can take it out of the room, guys. So, Tami, what kind of people wouldn't the system help? I mean, it just sounds like it's tremendously versatile and very applicable for nearly everyone.
Right. So it wouldn't be necessary for, let's say, a toddler, because toddlers have what we call like perfect use. Everything that they do is the most natural process of using the body. When they get into a squat, they can play in a squat for hours. That's how they play, and they run freely and they move their head with no tension. So I would not encourage toddlers, unless the toddler is born with some kind of issue or problem. I would not advise toddlers coming. And I also would advise people who have a hard time moving to just be aware that the Alexander technique, the traditional Alexander technique lesson, is table. We do some table work and chair work. We can also work on the floor if they can't get on a table. But of course, if a person is confined to a wheelchair, we can still work in the wheelchair. We can do some certain things. But the full traditional Alexander technique lesson is table work and chair work and walking around and that sort of thing.
So as long as a person is comfortable and competent to do so, there would be no restrictions. So it sounds to me like this is really quite safe for nearly anyone.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone. Yeah.
Tami, I'd like to, because I'm going to be asked these questions. If I don't ask them to you, my patients tomorrow are going to say, well, how come you didn't ask about this, and this? Tami, how safe is this for someone who has osteoporosis or osteopenia, meaning loss of the bony matrix? So they have a fragility of the skeletal system.
It's safe for everybody. It's there's a study right now for people with Parkinson's disease and how it helps stop the degeneration and deterioration.
Wow.
So it's safe for everybody. It's a non-intrusive technique, so it's not invasive. I'm not manipulating, not doing anything that could cause any kind of pain. I'm guiding the student. I'm having them look at themselves in the mirror as they carry out an activity, as they walk around the room. So they're in control. And if what they might experience, most people, in my experience with my students, most people will say, oh, that feels weird. That feels really weird. Like if I have them stand a certain way. I remember my husband, when I first met him, and I had to give him an Alexander technique lesson.
Of course you did.
And that's also why I married him, because he really liked it.
Yes,
and I just
wonderful.
Okay, yeah,
wasn't a deal breaker. Good.
Well, yeah. He was into it. He's like, this is really cool. And but he said to me, he's like, what did you do to me? Oh my God, I feel so weird. It feels so wrong. And so I'm like, this is normal. This is, again, that faulty sensory awareness where what you think feels wrong is actually your body coming into alignment through what you're doing to yourself. You know, you're lengthening your back, you're freeing your neck, your head is going forward up, and you're feeling this way. And then the next day he's like, I feel great. I'm like, yeah, because, you know, your body is getting back into balance. It's going to take you a while to relearn how to use your body the way you did as a child when it was moving around perfectly.
Right. Fantastic. Tami, we're going to take another break. Folks, we'll be right back. This is Dr. Nelson Bulmash. You're listening to Health Matters. My guest is Tami Bulmash. When we get back, we're going to hear about Tami's research.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Amy Dayries, a general and integrative dentist in Roswell, Georgia, and I'm also a spokesperson for the American Dental Association. You know, as a dentist, I tell my patients that the mouth is the window to one's overall health, just as the eyes are the window to one's soul. After working in general dentistry for the last 25 years, it has become my desire to offer good health resource information to everyone around me, empowering members of the public to become their best, healthiest selves. The Whole Healing Radio Show features practitioners from dentistry, healthcare, and nutrition about the cutting-edge techniques available. Together, my guests and I will show you how to implement lifestyle changes, achieve your personal goals for health, and heal the parts of you that may have been forgotten. When your health is intact, you can go on to manifest your ultimate dreams. Become the best version of yourself. Join me, Dr. Amy Dayries, on the Whole Healing Radio Show to learn how.
All right, Tami, we're back. And yes, Tami, believe it or not, I have another question for you.
Okay.
What is the question? Somebody on Facebook Live wants to ask you a question. Do we have it yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, they'll bring it in a second, Tami.
Okay.
So, Tami, let's finish this up here.
Okay.
So I'd love if you could just take a second and talk for a moment on the research on Parkinson's. That you really got my attention there, because sadly I am seeing more and more men and women who are coming in with Parkinson's. Do you have any information on the study that you were talking about?
Well, Monica Gross is actually in charge. She's an Alexander Technique teacher who received funding from the Parkinson's Foundation, and she's actually going to be doing a form of a congress in Florida on the 23rd of June. And I don't want to speak. I feel like she's the expert, so I wouldn't really want to speak about what she's doing. But generally speaking about Parkinson's, the Alexander Technique just promotes mobility. And again, when you're dealing with use and functioning, a person, you know, like stuttering or being confined to a wheelchair, when you are retraining the body how to use optimally in the way that we were designed, then the body is going to respond in accordance. Right. So, and that's how it helps with Parkinson's. It's carried out the way any lesson is carried out. We look at the way we're using our body. And so that's what's so nice about these principles is they're very basic and they can be applied to everyone. And you see progress with the elderly. You see progress with people like women that are prenatal and postnatal, people that are after they've given birth and they have pain, or if they have pain during their pregnancy. So there are just ways that we all hold our bodies that kind of hinders our optimal potential. and health.
Got it. Wonderful. Great answer. So somebody by the name of Catherine Flockin asked me to ask you a question. And unfortunately, as I asked this question, I'm not sure what she does. Do we know, Catherine? Okay. Oh, here it is. Thank you so much. One of our producers gave me his help with the actual question. It reads as follows. Hi, Tami. I'm an artist at a theme park in Central Florida, and I sit for the bulk of my shift, making portraits of the guests, their children, and even their pets. Sometimes I find myself correcting my posture in my chair because I catch myself slumping. This slumping creates some lower back pain. Can the Alexander technique help me maintain good posture throughout the duration of her shift? That's the question. Yes. Thank you, Jessie. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I so appreciate it because I had no idea what she was doing. So talk to Catherine specifically about this. What would you say to Catherine?
First, hi, Catherine, and thank you so much for your question. And absolutely, the Alexander technique can help. You'd be a perfect candidate for the Alexander technique. What I'd like for you to think about when you're sitting is how you're sitting. So if you're trying to overcorrect by arching, then it's really no different as far as your spine is concerned, whether you're rounding your back or arching. Both put pressure on the spine, undue tension and pressure. And what I would like for you to think about instead of how to sit is how to think. And the thoughts, in some ways, are more important than our actions, at least in the beginning. So think about your head as it is sitting on top of your body, as if it were a helium balloon. And this helium balloon is flying all the way up to the sky. And your spine is like this string that follows you up. And so rather than thinking straight, think up. And as you do that, as you sit straight and you think about your body and you're releasing your lower back and you're releasing your shoulders, and really start to think about every part of your body and say, I'm going to release tension in that part. Think about your wrists, think about your fingertips. And this is actually an exercise that I like for my students to think about too. When people can't feel tension in their body, when they don't know if they have tension, think about before you go to sleep. Sometimes people have a hard time falling asleep. But if you do this sort of body meditation where you think, okay, now I'm going to release my fingertips, I'm going to release my eyelids, I'm going to release my hips, and we just go to each part of our body and we say, release this tension, all of a sudden we feel very relaxed. And you can even do that right now. So if you're sitting for a long period of time, rather than think about, I need to sit up straight, think about, I need to sit up. And what does up mean? And what can I release? And of course, take a walk every 30 minutes if you can, in between people that come that want to have their pictures taken of themselves or their children or their pets, and really just be more aware of what you're doing with your body. Maybe the way that you're holding a pencil or scissors, are you holding it tightly? Like, think about really when you're doing it, think about the next time you're holding it. How are you holding it? What kind of tension is going on? Or you could do the same thing. I mean, we could even look at our phones without coming down to the phone. We could eat our meals without coming down to our meals. We could bring these things up to us. We could maintain eye level. We don't have to contort ourselves for the scissors towards the pencils. We can still maintain our length and carry out these activities.
Beautiful, beautiful answer. Tami, you brought lots of memories back. When I started training in the martial arts when I was very young, I remember very distinctly watching some of the really, really high-level masters. And everything they did, the way they poured tea, was artful. So they were very, very mindful about the way they walked. They were mindful about the way they spoke. You know, I remember they would pause and listen carefully to what I was saying, so they were sure they heard exactly what I meant to say. And so there was a mindfulness to that. And I remember really being impacted by how fascinating it was that these people lived so consciously about how they were in the world, whether it be the way they walked, the way they sat. They were so beautiful when they meditated. And then, of course, their sword techniques. The motion was as perfect as movement could be. So what I'm really, really getting about this, and now you've perked me even more. You know, you came last year. Unfortunately, your family had to leave. You had to evacuate Florida, as did my niece. And what prompted this whole conversation about the Alexander technique and its benefits is we got into this fascinating, absolutely engaging conversation about the benefits of all these modalities. And I really had never heard of anything quite like the Alexander technique, meaning I'd heard of it, but nobody gave such a beautiful description like you did. And what it's bringing, really, you've done an outstanding job. And what occurs to me is that I'm no longer the mindful individual that I once was. I've gotten carried up in life, and I've got to hurry here. I've got to hurry there. I don't care about my posture. I've got to finish my notes, and then I've got to get out to the next patient.
You're not alone.
No,
You're not alone.
I know, but I have to really thank you, Tami. You know, one of the things that I love is when I invite a guest onto the show, having the guest provoke thinking, making me, go back and think about my life and how I can alter my life favorably so I have more energy to help more people or to enjoy life more. So thank you. Your insights are absolutely wonderful.
As are yours. I love following you and what you're doing, all these new innovative, exciting things.
Thank you.
Definitely, I learn a lot from you too.
Well, the next time you and I get together, I'm going to be tugging on your coattails, so to speak. Tami, teach me.
Yes. Oh, yes. Well, hopefully won't be, evacuating from a hurricane next time.
No, yes. We won't need an emergency again.
Yes. A family reunion, but absolutely. But yes, what you spoke about with the martial arts, I mean, that's exactly the point. It actually ties into my research when you're looking at different cultures and different lifestyle practices and being in the moment. Like yoga in the Far East is a way of life. And here in the West, we've kind of adopted it as a form of exercise, but really it's a way of life. And that if you live that way, if you live in that mindset, then the movements are all going to be fluid. I love looking at people from different cultures. I conducted a study in Israel looking at two different populations of school children. And one was a low-income group comprised of Russian and Ethiopian immigrants, and the second one was an upper-middle-class group comprised predominantly of Eastern European Jews. And what I found, what was so beautiful about the Ethiopian and Russian immigrants was how beautiful their use was, how easily they went into a squat, and how their lifestyle practices looked so differently than the ones that were already westernized.
Right.
Less technology usage. I mean, you did see an increase of mobile phone usage, which I'll explain in a second, but more time playing outside. That group spent 3 hours more a week playing outside and just exercising as they were like basketball and soccer and running and doing these sorts of things. And they ate better. They ate home-cooked meal. There were very few, if any, I think one student or two even ate fast food. And in Israel, fast food is more expensive than it would be here in the States because of the kosher laws. So they could, people from a lower income group couldn't afford to eat out. So they were eating these home-cooked meals. So you see this different lifestyle practice where they're using technology less on a whole, and they're exercising more, and they're eating better. And you see this beautiful result, this beautiful posture, if you will, as a result. Whereas you have the group that's more westernized that are spending about 4 hours more a week using the computer and 3.5 hours more using the television and using the tablet and using the phone. And you see what that does. And their only form of exercise is more designated times, like organized play. So they have karate lessons or they have gymnastics, and you don't see this going outside and playing with their friends because they have so many different activities lined up with them. And this is very prevalent among the more affluent communities, is you want to get your children into all of these different activities, but how physically active are they really in all of these activities as opposed to playing outside? And so the upper middle class group was also eating more fast food, eating out more, eating less nutritionally, and also they were engaging in these excessive technology usage. What I did find, although that the lower income group did spend less time overall on these devices, I did find an increase in mobile phone usage. So those participants didn't have access to all 4 of the electronic devices that I examined, which were the TV, the computer, the tablet, and phone, but they all had the mobile phone.
That's
and so you have to then, you have to
any level, socioeconomic level, even the poor have cell phones.
Yes, they had the phones, they had access, and because that was the only device that they had, in some cases, you found that they were using the phone 6 hours more on average than the upper middle class group. And so while both groups spent about 40 hours a week in sedentary position, and the majority of that time was using technology usage, and an additional 26 and a half hours a week sitting in school, so just sitting down in school, you found that these children were spending close to 70 hours a week sitting down.
Yes.
So while the lower income population was still less at risk, they were both really at risk for poor posture. And so you have to wonder about what is it like, elsewhere in the world? What are
absolutely.
Children?
Yeah. Can you imagine the United States here?
Right.
I mean, think of how do you think if you did, you and I laughed about this earlier, I'm not trying to push you into more research. Tammy,
Right.
I know you're as busy as you could be, but any guesses, any thoughts about how it would pan out if you did a similar study here in the United States?
I would venture to imagine that I would find much higher rates of obesity here because fast food is accessible to the poor. It's cheaper food. So in many cases, people go to fast food just because they want to be able to feed their families, and that's affordable.
Sure.
And buying fruits and vegetables, I don't know why that should be, that should just be a flat rate, very, very low cost, but they're very expensive. And going organic is a different story. And of course, exercise. I mean, children today in schools, they get like a 20-minute recess break. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot of exercise there unless they're in all these sports. And what technology usage, I mean, technology is so affordable now, and I don't really know of many people that don't have a phone unless they choose not to have a phone. So I think that the findings would be exacerbated. I think they would just be much worse. I think it would be,
I'm in agreement with you. That makes a lot of sense. How interesting that in Israel that the poor were eating better food and that people would pay for lesser quality food. That's remarkable to me.
Yeah. It's also, I think, telling of what happens when these cultures, these groups that were more isolated and maintained a lot of their cultural lifestyle habits, which was home-cooked meals, playing outside, because they weren't integrated into this Western culture, they maintained so many of these positive attributes that we can learn so much from. Yeah. We can learn from these cultures. They might be poor or lower income, but we have so much to learn from them.
Got it. Good point. Tammy, we'll be right back. Once again, you're listening to me, Dr. Nelson Bulmash. The program is Health Matters, and my guest is Tami Bulmash, who's speaking about the benefits of the Alexander Technique.
Are you ready to be the hero of your own story? It's time to put the power of your health back into your hands. Join us for our free 25-day journey to get your life back now from chronic illness. Our doctors and experts will guide you back to optimal health.
Okay, the standard of care. 3 Australian oncologists did a meta-analysis. That's the cream de cream of research in 2004. And they found that when they analyzed all the research studies published in the English language in Australia and in the United States, that when you take stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 cancer, combine them, that the average survival for 5 years is 60%. And when you add chemotherapy to that, you improve it to 62%. Okay? So a 2% increase in survival rate over 5 years for $300,000 of expense, all the pain and anguish and suffering that you go through with chemotherapy. Great return on investment, don't you think?
Go to www.getyourlifebacknow.live and begin your journey today.
Folks, I'm back. Dr. Nelson Bulmash here. I'm talking to my guest, Tami Bulmash, who's speaking about the benefits of the Alexander Technique. The show is Health Matters. For those of you who are listening, please, we would enjoy some questions. So if you're on Facebook Live, send them our way. And if you're in a position to call us, if you're driving, please pull over and be safe. The number is 678-495-4345. Tammy, let's talk about, I'm a little sad here because I'm having so much fun with you. I wish we could at least do another hour here. It's gone by so fast.
I can't even believe it.
Yeah, I promised you it would. Do you remember?
Yes.
Tammy, one of the things that I always, after the fact, I get a lot of questions over is Nelson, why don't you spend a little bit more time talking about specifics? So could you speak to maybe some tips or techniques, Tami, that would help someone eliminate difficulties, whether it be pain or decreased energy output from poor posture if you're typing all day, or even, one of the things we haven't touched on is I'd love to hear some of your thoughts about improving performance as an athlete. For example, do you have any strategies using the Alexander technique if you're a runner? Are there any suggestions you have for improving one's ability to run with less pain and suffering?
Yes, absolutely. There are teachers that have specialized with the Alexander technique teachers that specialize with runners particularly, and have talked about the Alexander technique with runners. I apply the principles of the Alexander technique in the same way for everyone. Someone who is a runner, who is an Alexander technique teacher, would probably be able to relate more to athletes than I would, because I'm not an athlete, but I still would apply the same principles. And the first thing I would say to any of my students that is suffering from any kind of pain is to do what is called semi-supine, to lie in semi-supine for about 20 minutes a day. And semi-supine is a position where you're lying flat on your back, and you could lie on the floor, on a mat on the floor, or a towel, or on your carpet, and you put about an inch or two, maybe, depending on how comfortable you are with that width under your head for support. So a good way to gauge how thick the book would be to stand against a wall and see how far the space is between your head and the wall when your back is completely against the wall. And children, if you'll notice, their head goes straight against the wall. They don't even have a gap there. Right. And to lie down with your knees elevated. So your feet are flat, planted into the floor, and the knees are elevated or bent, facing up. And it's similar to the same position as you might see people at the beach when they're laying out. And lay like that for 20 minutes. And as you're doing that, you're decompressing your body. You're just decompressing and relaxing, and really allowing your body to not be tense, because when we're sitting, we're not only fighting with gravity to maintain being upright, we're also fighting with all of our habits. Right. But when you're lying down, then you get this really wonderful release. So that's a great way. If you do that 20 minutes a day, especially after injury, it's going to make a huge difference.
So Tami, if I may, in other words, so if you're doing this could help improve your posture, your mechanics, your performance, whether you're in a more static situation, meaning typing at a desk, or if you're actually running, right? Because the same principles apply, right? Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, it's the same. It's the same because it's really the way we use our body. The activity is just another name to call how we use our body. It's whether you're running or if you're still carrying out your tension in the same way, if you're going to the startle position where, and just think of it this way, as this analogy, if you have a cat that is looking at a mouse, right? And animals and small children are really good models of good posture. So this cat sees a mouse and it pounces on it. It sees it, it gets excited, and it pounces. Then it goes back to a resting state. Nothing happened. Sees it another hour or two later, pounces, and then comes back. Now while we don't pounce, like towards mice or a mouse, we get the same startle pattern. We get that same way over little things. Oh my God, I have to cook dinner. Oh my God, I have to go to the store. Oh, I'm going to be late for work. So we're just doing this tension all the time. So it's going to disrupt our functioning. Now, runners, and if you are holding tension in your body as you run, then you're going to experience more pain. Of course, there's injury if someone falls, but the wear and tear on the body is a result of use. It's a result of how you're using your body.
Really, really, really good point. You're bringing so many incredible points. I want to have a follow-up so I can speak intelligently to the number of people that are going to quiz me when I get back to work tomorrow and over the next weeks. This is so fascinating. So one of the things that comes to mind, Tami, is that we really have not been taught how, you have a method here with the Alexander technique, but what other systems other than maybe meditation are you taught how to alleviate the stress that we trap probably every day into our bodies?
Right. I absolutely agree with you. And this is one of the things that I try to stress with my students and in my blogs is this notion of body education. Why aren't we body educated? Why are we only told about our body when we're a newborn or a baby, when someone points out to our cute little toes or cute little fingers, and we're taught how to walk in kindergarten and think about personal space? And what happens? When does it just become something that we're supposed to know? I mean, some of my students get really embarrassed because they're like, I can't believe I didn't know how to do that. I'm like, but who taught you? Who taught you how to think about your feet? Who taught you?
Right.
Nobody teaches you to do that. And I wish that this would be an integral part of education in school, not just health education and disease, but like prevention. Like, let's think about our bodies, like holistically. How are you holding your pencil? Are you gripping your pencil? Are you holding? What are you doing with your shoulders? How are you sitting in your chair? All of these things are things to think about. Body use. And that's what I love about the Alexander technique, is that it's so much more than just posture. Posture, of course, is a huge part because it's the reflection of how we use our bodies. But it's so much about the habits that accrue and form posture.
What a great point. You have groups. You meet as members of the Alexander technique. Do you talk about bringing this into the educational process? Because you're right. This is absolutely invaluable. I mean, you're going to laugh at this. It's the truth. I don't know where I picked this up, but if you ever look at my penmanship, and of course my family makes jokes about it, you're a doctor, Dad, you can get away with it. But my friends used to say, for God's sakes, Nelson, are you slaying that pencil? The sound of the tension of your pencil against the paper is unnerving when I sit next to you. I'd get here like this, and I'd be all aggressive, and then my hand would cramp. When I was done with school, I could hardly use my hand. And it was simply, nobody ever said, hey, Nelson, why don't you lighten up on that pencil? So
yeah, you're not alone. You are not alone. And I see that in children, which makes me sad. And what I also, when I see someone with beautiful handwriting, I'm always intrigued by them. And I want to just kind of, my sister happens to have beautiful handwriting. And I look at her and I'm like, how are we related? Because I'm like my dad. I write like chicken scratch. I mean, just kidding. And here, I'm like, how did we come from like the same parents? Because it's like calligraphy. I mean, she just writes so beautifully. And I'm just intrigued by people that take the time to really develop or have developed these muscles, because it's like there's so much to be said, like you said, about space and time, about handwriting. I mean, I think that for people that just want to get it down, but they have these ideas and they just want to get it down and they write it really quickly because that's more important. That's important to people like you and I, because it's like we've got a lot that we want to say. We've got to get it down. And then there are other people that just are really in that moment, really taking their time. And it's kind of like art. And they're utilizing all of these wonderful muscles as they're doing that. And it's a habit that stays with them. So even when things get rushed, when like my sister has got kids and she's, busy, but she sent us a card recently for my daughter's birthday. And I was just like,
you're not going to throw it away, right?
Yeah, I'm not.
I know. My daughter Ariel and my brother are the same way. I mean, when they communicate, it's like, no, I can't throw this away. This is art. Which sister? Which sister are you referring to?
Sarit. Mika has good handwriting too, but Sarit was the one that I haven't paid attention to Mika's handwriting in a while. But Sarit, I mean, I was just like, what? And she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're saying that. I thought it was just scribbled, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, right. Are you kidding? So. This is scribble.
No, I've got, trust me, I've got things that I'm still like, I'm an Alexander technique teacher. I need to write better than this. But, some habits are
die hard. Yes. Yeah. So when you're with me, you can help me set up, for maybe the next 60 sessions that I can practice lightening up on my pen or pencil.
Yeah. No, I think you'd surprise yourself. I think if you really took the time and looked at it, I think you'd really surprise you. I know I do. I know when I really take my time and I'm like, my gosh, that's how long it takes to do that. Right. It takes effort and conscious awareness to, I got
it. Oh, so, gosh, we're winding down. We got 2 minutes. It's time for final thoughts, Tami. What are your final thoughts about today and today's interview? Anything in particular you want to share with our listening and viewing audience?
I just want to first thank you so much, Nelson, for having me on your show. And you're very, very dear to me. And I'm just so happy that we are related and that this is in our family. Yes. This health consciousness and awareness. I think that's wonderful. And what I'd really like my final thoughts are, if you are a person who wants to change is looking for change to feel better about yourself, then don't think that you can't. If the Alexander Technique is something that you might be interested in, then read about it and educate yourself about what it is, and find a teacher, and I can provide that information for you. You can go to a website called www.alexandertechnique.com for information about the Alexander Technique and ways that it might be able to help you. And also, there's another organization called the American Society for Alexander Technique Teachers, and that's AMSAT, AMSAT online.org. And so that's another place to find teachers, and to really just think about if you are willing to make that commitment for yourself and to really improve your quality of life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tami. I hope you'll stay on the line for just a second.
Yes.
I'll complete our interview today by thanking you, Tami. It was such a pleasure. And I want everybody to know I will be back. We will be live at 5 in 2 weeks. That's June 26th, 2 weeks from today. Thank you all. Signing out. We'll catch you again for another edition of Health Matters.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Health Matters with Dr. Nelson Bulmash, where we help you discover how to ignite your mind, body, and spirit